Judy, take a picture. How's the puppet looking? Is it okay?
Yeah. This, I think we want to separate. We want to see the signs. Let's separate.
Hello, hello.
First women say side by side with men. And I think that's opposite. That was my first recording because the last couple of years there was these folks that were working with this
Testing, 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 testing.
So they both are a
Hello, 1, 2, 3.
It's okay.
1, 2, 3.
Frustrates me and we know that this is beneficial to our economy, beneficial to our security, beneficial to the world. I serve my country to be combatant with honor, courage, and commitment for 26 years.
One, two, three.
I think that elected officials and any company should abide by those values, the idea of secure and service. And in my view, both as a military veteran and now as a mom, America has been missing. It's also about responsibility. Lives involved.
1, 2, 3. We're just a couple of minutes from being ready to start. Thanks to you.
Couple of minutes before we start, be ready.
I'll be on the phone. Okay. Maurice is going to have the lead on.
I see. Is there a website?
Yes, I wrote that to you right now. Just Dave right there.
Sorry, I'm all mic'd up. Could you ask him to come over?
Sure.
David.
We are a couple of minutes from starting.
Ito pa ba? Ikaw ba may maskara ka? Ito naman ikaw. I don't know who he is. Who is he?
Yeah, that's better.
Who is he?
That's, I think,
Saudi?
Saudi.
No, Saudi is there, oh. Who is
Salman. Who's this?
Ask David.
Dave. Who is this?
David.
Who's this? Dave.
Mr. David.
David. Who is this?
My name is Alash. I'm with Iran International. Would you be willing to talk to us for a minute or two on how you organize this? What does it mean?
I think do you need that now or anything after?
No, definitely. We're going to need it in 30 minutes.
Okay. I don't think this will take more than 30 minutes.
Okay. All right. Are you moving from here somewhere else?
No,
We'll
this
just
is
continue. Okay. How long do you think it's going to last?
I don't think it'll last more than 30 minutes.
More than 30 minutes.
I don't think it'll be more.
Okay, I see. All right. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Talk to you later, sir.
Testing, 1, 2, 3. Okay ba?
But I'm sure they will not leaving like one Tell us. How are you, man?
All right.
Long time. Where have you been?
Just they took me out of the safe and put me out
really?
to work again. Yeah.
Hey David, remind me of this man's name.
Looks good. Looks good.
Who am I looking at right now?
Testing, 1, 2, 3. Very good. How about Dave? You're all set up? We can start down. Right, we'll have a picture taking.
Mohammed bin Zayed, UAE.
All right. Judy, could we get everybody for a group picture so people might be giving her a... Oh, okay, Dave, would you like to start? Yeah, we can switch. Yeah.
So thank you for joining us here today for Autocrat Fair. I'm glad you were able to be here. I'm not exactly glad to have 10 notorious autocratic world leaders with us, but their presence here makes a point about the state of human rights and democracy in the world. And one thing they all have in common is their relationship with U.S. President Donald Trump, a leader who, despite his ability to corrupt our norms and institutions of our own country, is weak on the world stage. Now, Autocrat Fair is the first event of the Stand with Human Rights and Democracy campaign, also known as Stand Global. Stand Global sounds supporting over global authoritarianism and disinformation, the attacks on democracy and free media. We call for heightened international action for human rights, and we support the world's mechanisms for promoting human rights, including the United Nations, the International Criminal Court, and laws like the Global Magnitsky Act, which sanction culpable individuals involved in human rights violations without harming their people's economies. We call for an immediate end to the Trump administration's sanctions against the International Criminal Court and its staff. Now, my own organization, as opposed to the Stand with Human Rights and Democracy Coalition, is called StopTheDrugWar.org, and I'll explain a little later why we are involved in this. But this campaign grows out of work we have done since 2017 with allies in the Philippines and Filipino Americans over the extrajudicial killings in the Philippine drug war, which more than 30,000 people have already been killed. And that's the reason we're involved. And so before we will hear a little bit about the autocrats, and we have two special statements that we are going to read momentarily. But first, I first will hear briefly from Eric Lachica, our ally with Movement for Free Philippines and a partner in today's event. Eric?
Good afternoon. I'd like to introduce on behalf of the Movement Free Philippines our spokesperson, Ms. Maurice Owens. And she and I and others, and Judy and Ronnie have been with the Movement for the Free Philippines for the past 40 years. And we were blacklisted by the Marcos dictatorship. So we're glad to be here. So Maurice, would you like to read our statement?
Good afternoon, brothers and sisters. My name is Maurice Owens. On behalf of the Movement for Free Philippines, we thank the Stand for Human Rights and Democracy Coalition, the Stop the Drug War campaign, and allies for staging this first autocrats fair in front of the President Trump's hotel. Thank you, David Borden, for organizing this demonstration. Maraming salamat to our Argentine artist, Cesar Maxid here, for his impressive marionettes and autocrats face masks. We are here today to protest President Donald Trump's embrace and support of world's autocrats and dictators. This hotel behind me is the destination of choice for autocrats, corrupt and repressive governments to curry favor with President Trump. We read in the Post and the New York Times and other media outlets revealing details about President Trump's recent tax returns and shameless business dealings with President Duterte, President Xi Jinping, President Vladimir Putin to sell out American ideals. Now on Rodrigo Duterte of the Philippines. In the Philippines, Trump paid more than $165,000 to the Duterte government in 2017, while Trump paid $750 to his own government. We, I am sure, paid more in taxes as Americans. Trump received more than $3 million from his Filipino business partner, Jose Antonio, for just licensing his Trump name for the 57-story condo in Manila. No surprise, Antonio is now the special envoy of Duterte to the United States. The world now knows that Duterte, Putin, Xi Jinping, Kim Jong-un, and Trump are mutual admiration buddies. Trump calls and congratulates Duterte. In February, Duterte publicly called for Trump's re-election. Trump, he said, deserves to be re-elected. Do we want Trump re-elected? No! No! President Rodrigo Duterte campaigned on the promise to kill hundreds of thousands of drug law violators. A massive extrajudicial killing campaign began immediately on his taking office in 2016, with human rights organizations estimated at least 30,000. His term has also been marked by attacks on media outlets and contrived legal cases against opposition leaders like political prisoner, Philippine Senator Laila de Lima, and journalist Marisa Ressa. Let's say, free Laila!
Free Laila!
End persecution of journalists!
End persecution of journalists!
End the Trump, Duterte, Putin Shortly after being elected, Duterte called President Barack Obama a son of a whore, following Obama's criticism of Duterte's drug war killings, prompting the White House to cancel a planned meeting between the two leaders. In 2017, Trump met with Duterte at the ASEAN summit, appearing hand in hand with Duterte at the summit's meeting. Trump has praised Duterte's drug war twice and expressed a desire to host him in the White House. To the mothers and fathers of the 30,000 EJK victims of Duterte's murderous era, we will continue to stand with Filipino people and fight for justice and freedom from repression. Next Tuesday, the American people will vote and decide who will be the next president. We are in a dangerous time where almost 250,000 of our fellow Americans have died of the coronavirus pandemic. The decoded in chief bungled with his shameless lies, incompetence, and mismanagement. I am confident the American people will win with the election of former Vice President Joe Biden and Senator Kamala Harris. So, will Joe Biden be our next president?
Yes!
Will Kamala Harris be our next vice president?
Yes!
And will they end the nightmare of Donald Trump? Yes! Thank you.
Make sure we're going it the right way. So next we'll be reading a statement provided by Congressman Jamie Raskin. I guess I'll read that unless someone else wants to volunteer. Okay, our next statement is from Congressman. It's a statement from Congressman.
Closer.
And turn it itself down.
So I'm pleased that Congressman Jamie Raskin from my own town of Tacoma Park has provided this statement. I'm proud to co-sponsor H.R. 8313, the Philippines Human Rights Act of 2020. This bill imposes limitations on providing assistance to the police or military of the Philippines until the government investigates and holds accountable individuals responsible for the systematic human rights violations occurring under the false pretenses of a drug war. Until President Duterte stops sending his forces to commit extrajudicial killings, the U.S. should stop sending military or police assistance. President Duterte is one of many authoritarians, from Bolsonaro in Brazil, Erdogan in Turkey, Mohammed bin Salman in Saudi Arabia, and Putin in Russia, who are exploiting the global pandemic crisis to violate human rights, attack democracy, consolidate executive power, and criminalize basic freedoms of speech and assembly. President Trump and his administration have cozied up to all these bullies and enemies of freedom and democracy while turning a blind eye to victims of their violence and tyranny. It is incumbent that we in Congress stand strong against authoritarians and autocrats the world over. While I cannot be physically with you today, I commend your campaign to stand with human rights and democracy, and thank you for peacefully exercising your rights to make your voices heard. Together we can successfully defend human rights and democracy around the world. Thank you, Congressman Raskin. Let's pull Trump straight a little bit. That's what you will do.
sure it's on. I hold it this way. Okay, guys.
So before we go on to the next statements, we have some information to read about our autocrats and why we view them the way we do. We'll skip the information on Duterte since we have heard the important parts. We'll read a couple of them for what I have stated. Recep Tayyip Erdogan from Turkey. 2019, Trump abruptly ordered the withdrawal of U.S. troops from Syria's border from Turkey, paving the way for Turkish troops to invade. Sorry, let's start over here. Can someone run this?
Could you hold the camera?
On?
Yeah, it's on.
So we have some blurbs explaining why we feel it's fair to paint Donald Trump's relationship with these autocratic leaders in the way we have. First, President Erdogan of Turkey. In 2019, Trump abruptly ordered the withdrawal of U.S. troops from Syria's border from Turkey, paving the way for Turkish troops to invade. The move altered years of U.S. policy and blindsided U.S. defense officials. Turkey's subsequent invasion and bombing displaced 200,000 Kurds. Kurdish forces fought for the U.S. in Iraq and had relied on U.S. protection. In 2017, Erdogan bodyguards in Washington, D.C. beat Kurdish protesters in Sheridan Circle near the Turkish embassy. The U.S. government waited for a month before taking legal action, only filing charges against two of them, which were dropped a short time later after the House of Representatives passed a resolution calling for this. The charges were dropped in advance of a high-level meeting between Erdogan and then Secretary of State Rex Tillerson. Trump's decision to withdraw U.S. troops is reported to have been made instinctively following a phone call with Erdogan. There are two adjoining Trump towers in the Sicily district of Istanbul, one business and one residential. I will read the next one, then we will have another statement provided by another organization, which is I'm very honored to have. But first, Viktor Orban. Prime Minister Orban is broadly condemned as having destroyed Hungary's democracy, eviscerating the free press and attacking civil society as well as academia. Trump has praised Orban on multiple occasions and in 2019 invited him to the White House, breaking with a long U.S. practice ostracizing Prime Minister Orban. Trump claims that Orban is respected all over Europe. I don't think it's necessarily the case, adding, like me, he's a little bit controversial. Orban, with Vladimir Putin, works to undermine the Ukrainian government's standing with President Trump. His efforts to paint the government as hopelessly corrupt coincided with Trump's attempts to pressure the Ukraine into manufacturing new controversies involving then prospective presidential candidate Joe Biden and his family, leading to the impeachment of the president. So, would anyone like to, Eric, would you like to read our statement from Dawn?
Okay, all right.
Sure. That stack of papers.
Yes, right behind you.
Yeah, we gotta do this in front of the White House on election night. All right, here, Rock, if we're gonna be hassled. Okay. Statement of the Autocrats Fair by Stand With Human Rights and Democracy campaign. provided by the Democracy for the Arab World, World Now, Dawn, founded by former journalist and activist Jamal Khashoggi. I'm really honored. Shortly before his murder. President Trump has called the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, Mohammed bin Salman, a friend. Jared Kushner has called him a good ally of the United States. MBS is certainly close to the U.S. if you measure such things by arms sales. Saudi Arabia accounted for an astounding 25% of total U.S. arms sales from 2015 to 2019. MBS is something else too. The brutal dictator of Saudi Arabia, who has waged war against his own people at home and caused the greatest humanitarian crisis in the world. The Yemen war is a brainchild of MBS. He has launched it just after he became defense minister in 2015 with no strategy and no regard for human life. Since 2015, the war has resulted in death and injury of more than 20,000 Yemeni civilians and the starvation of over 85,000 Yemeni children. Much of the death and destruction has been dealt out with U.S. arm and assistance. At home, Mohammed bin Salman has turned Saudi Arabia into an authoritarian police state in which peaceful activists like women rights activist Lohane Al-Tol are jailed and tortured. Saudi prosecutors seek the death penalty against peaceful dissidents. Closer. All right. And Saudi authorities has often held hostage the family members of dissidents living abroad, either banning them from travel outside the country or imprisoning them outright. Not content with imprisoning civilian activists at home, MBS has threatened, harassed, and murdered Saudi activists living abroad, including Dawn's founder, Jamal Khashoggi, a columnist for the Washington Post. The Saudis lured Jamal to Istanbul in late 2018, then sent a hit squad to kill him in a Saudi consulate. If polls are correct, President Trump will be defeated on November 3rd. Unfortunately, U.S. support of Saudi Arabia has been unwavering through Democratic and Republican administrations. We at Dawn will do our best to change that. Message from the Democracy for the Arab World Now organization. Thank you very much. Dave, back to you.
Thank you, Eric. North Korean Supreme Leader Kim Jong-un leads a cult of personality regime that is one of the world's most repressive. Trump has touted a good relationship with Kim and hoped that the Supreme Leader would end the North Korean nuclear weapons program simply because of that relationship. He held 2 direct meetings with Kim without having a diplomatic plan in place, of course. Those criticisms having been made by the foreign policy establishment at the time. These meetings were propaganda crews for the Kim government, whose state-owned media outlets ran footage of them for days. Kim, however, failed to provide meaningful concessions, only closing a reactor that was already past its useful lifespan. Trump continues to talk about his good relationship with Kim.
You have to share later. There you go. I share. I have no problem.
We have heard something about MBS and Saudi Arabia and the abuses there, and of course what he had done to Jamal Khashoggi. Another of our autocrats is Crown Prince Mohammed bin Zayed, MBZ, from Abu Dhabi, which in Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, and Egypt imposed a blockade on the country of Qatar. Trump administration, initially reported to be divided about this, decided to support the blockade, departing from long-running U.S. policy toward Qatar, a military and economic ally of the U.S. The blockade followed an April meeting between the Kushner family business and Qatar's Minister of Finance, in which Qatar declined to provide financing to rescue the Kushner family's struggling 666 Fifth Avenue office building in New York. The UAE under MPC has grown increasingly authoritarian. British PhD student Matthew Hedges was detained for 6 months over accusations of spying, much of the time in solitary confinement. Trump has pursued business opportunities in the UAE since 2005. A private real estate conglomerate in 2013 made a deal to build a $6 billion Trump-branded golf club, and the second club is in development. UAE was exempted from the Trump administration's infamous travel ban that targeted most Muslim countries. President Jair Bolsonaro of Brazil has advocated towards her, and while campaigning, praised President Duterte's extrajudicial drug war killings. His term has been marked by a wide range of human rights abuses, as well as green lighting of massive burning and destruction of the Brazil's rainforest. Ardent police convicted for illegal use of force and undermined attempts to end torture in the nation's prisons. Trump invited Bolsonaro to the White House in 2019 and praised him effusively, saying he was honored by the comparison of Bolsonaro's presidential campaign to his. So our last, Eric, if you can explain to us Xi Jinping, China, well, he's holding a Duterte marionette. And that will be our final presentation of the day.
Okay, a few more minutes because there's another group going to be here with a permit at 1 o'clock. So I'd like, on behalf of the Movement Free Philippines and our allies, thank you much, David, and our great marionette folks for being here today, stop the drug war, and the Xi Jinping Duterte connection is very clear. As you probably know, the President, Trump, admitted that he had an open checking account in China, and he has been the Chinese government and businesses have patronized his Trump Tower Hotel. In fact, he just closed, I think last year, several floors of in the Trump Tower in New York. So the connections are there, and we'd like to say that Xi Jinping has enabled, along with President Putin of Russia, working partnership with Duterte, who is a fan of President Trump. Okay, there he is, President Putin, and you just realize, in fact, he was confronted or challenged by Leslie Stahl on 60 Minutes last Sunday. Those with what, 60 million? How many people watched the show? And he basically confirmed he's not going to call out President Putin. And he said that Xi Jinping is still his friend, despite the ongoing trade war, so to speak. So I'd just like to say that Xi Jinping and Putin have enabled Duterte to exist. The military assistance is increasing. China, under Xi Jinping, has invaded Philippine territory and occupied several islands of the Philippines and set up military bases and challenged the U.S. Navy, the U.S. Air Force, and the Philippine military forces from regaining control of Philippine sovereignty in the West Philippine Sea. So I'm here today to say that the Trump Hotel behind us is a favorite destination of these autocrats and their representatives. It's a location for all the lobbyists who are currying favor with the Trump administration. And hopefully this will be sold. I know it's not making money despite the best efforts of President Trump and his family. So I call upon you to join us again on election night, right after the elections, to be in front of the White House right here. If the Park Service will allow us, the White House only a few blocks away. Let's see if we can set up a protest on election night. I'm pretty sure it will be packed with a lot of people supporting Vice President Biden and Kamala Harris. And hopefully we will have a victory. And I'm very confident we can pull it off. The American people has learned they cannot be fooled every time with this Abe Lincoln wannabe. So thank you so much to all who are here today, especially our media and our supporters, led by our friends from the Movement Free Philippines. Stand up for human rights and democracy. Thank you. Maraming salamat. Thank you very much for your dedicated. All right, so we've been informed that we have to move out. There's another group coming in. And before we do that, let's have a group picture right in front.
Well,
go ahead, Dave.
I thought we'd close and then the group picture with one chant. It's a variation. There's a popular chant at protests. This is what democracy looks like. Our variation is that's not what democracy looks like. So we're going to chant it. I'll point at the autocrats and then at the hotel, and we'll say each time that's not what democracy looks like, and we can do that 3 times each. So. That's not what democracy looks like. 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 That's definitely not what democracy looks like. Okay, group picture. Let's compress everybody together. All right.
Alright, that's good. Oh no, she's photo.
On the count of 3, say, fuck Trump! Fuck Trump! Thank you!
Fuck Trump! You didn't say 1, 2, 3.
Okay, hold on.
That's not fair. You count.
I'm so sorry. Hold on.
I did quick jump.
Can you
On the
take a
count
little
of 3,
step back?
everybody say, fuck Trump!
Yeah, I'm trying not
Fuck Trump! Yeah!
Sorry, but I don't like. I have to come through, but because you jump, I didn't have to.
Pro-democracy!
pro-democracy, pro-human rights, pro-human rights, pro-elections, pro-elections, pro-democracy, pro-democracy, pro-human rights, pro-human rights, pro-human rights, pro-human rights, pro-human rights, pro-human rights, pro-democracy, pro-democracy, pro-human rights, pro-human rights, pro-elections, pro-elections, pro-human rights, pro-human rights.